All right, so we're moving on to the NBA now. Obviously, not a whole lot going on with the season being canceled, and it's not really any kind of off season. But we did get a big breath of fresh air for something for us basketball fans to watch with another trailer for the Last Dance documentary about the 97-98 Bulls dropping. What do you guys want out of this documentary, and are you excited for it?
I'm absolutely excited. I'm one of those guys that religiously watches 30 for 30s over and over and over again. I'm not as big of a Michael Jordan supporter as you are, Scotty. Still love him. Still think he's one of the greatest players of all time, and there's an argument for him to be number one. But even as a guy who isn't a diehard Michael Jordan supporter, I'm still beyond excited for this documentary. A multi-part documentary like this, we just haven't seen before in sports, so I think it's going to be revolutionary. And I'm honestly, I'm speechless because I can't wait for it to drop.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I'm a huge Michael Jordan supporter, like you said. I unfortunately wasn't alive to witness the greatness as it was happening, but I know as much about Michael Jordan as anybody, and I know what the greatness looked like. He was an incredible player who was untouchable for the whole entire, well, almost the whole entire decade of the 90s with a couple of blips in the radar. But I'm super excited for this documentary because at that point in the 97-98 season, everything on that Chicago team was imploding on itself. And there were a lot of tensions between a lot of strong personalities like Phil Jackson, Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Dennis Rodman. And I really think we're going to get our first true look into what it takes, into what it looks like to be around a bunch of guys who are trying to do nothing but win basketball games, and the ugliness that can come with it, and how the personalities can collide. I think a lot of people's opinions of a lot of these players are going to drop a lot after this documentary drops, for sure, because we're going to see a lot of ugly sides of a lot of players. But I'm really excited to see what really went on in that locker room.
Yeah, I think my biggest takeaway is just that, like, for our generation, Scotty, you brought it up, we weren't alive to see Michael Jordan and his greatness in person. You know, the when we were growing up, when we were younger kids, it was kind of Kobe, and then obviously our life, LeBron has been our MJ, and it's not. I'm not trying to compare the two because I know everybody tries to do that. I'm just saying, in that same facet, for our dad, you know, when they were watching sports growing up, they're like, damn, Mike. And, you know, when we're coming up, we're like, damn, Kobe and damn, LeBron. Like, it's that same era and that same feeling. And I'm excited to kind of be able to really, like you said, Scotty, just see a good side of it from a different perspective, because that camera was running no matter what. I
And
mean, they don't.
we know all those guys had their faults, they had their vices, they had their fights. This is in no way going to be a flattering documentary, I think, and I'm
Oh,
really excited for that.
yeah, I am too. I think that's one thing that, like, people kind of get caught up in. And I mean, I think competitiveness is a really, really good thing. But like you said, it can bring out a lot of ugly in people. And I mean, we don't know a more fearsome competitor than MJ. And so I really just think we'll kind of see the true, like you said, you put it perfectly, what it takes to win basketball games at that high level for that.
The clip that really has been getting to me in the trailers is when Michael is sitting on his couch with the glass of scotch or whatever he's drinking in his hands. And he's just talking about, like, I was trying to win at all costs. That was
I know
all I
that
was trying to do.
that's
And
I'm just like, what does that mean? What does all cost mean? Because I
because
know it
he was
means.
scary.
Oh, I know. Yeah,
He was a scary dude.
he was a competitor like no other. And I'm just the amount of people that they're interviewing outside of just the team. I mean, they have so many guys that have a prominent role, and just like it can really emulate it from what it was like. We get the inside perspective, but we also get the outside perspective. And I just think it's going to be a documentary like we've never really seen.
Who are you, like, most excited to see what they were really about at that time period? Whether
I
it's
mean,
Pippen or Dennis or Mike or whoever.
okay, definitely MJ, just because, you know, we just talked about it. I just want to see his. We saw it with Kobe with the jaw clench me, and we saw it with Braun Game 6 against the Celtics with the villain face. You know, I want to see that side of MJ, because I don't take any respect away from MJ. I don't discredit anything he did as a player, but it simply just doesn't have the same effect because we never got to see him play. And we see those guys go into that zone live game, and highlights just don't do it the same justice. And this raw footage of really just like what MJ was, I think is going to be so captivating. But Scotty, we're roommates. You are a Rodman lover, and I am just dying to see the craziness behind this dude, bro.
Oh,
He is
no,
just he's a character, but he is just such a beast. He's just down to earth. He's crazy. He's everything, and that there's so much to Dennis Rodman that people just say, "Oh yeah, he's the guy on the that rebounded and was crazy and had the rainbow hair." Like, sure, that's Rodman, but there is so much more to Rodman.
There is a lot, especially with what he does now.
That's what I want to know, bro. That's MJ's will and his it factor is what I want to see, and I just want to see Rodman as who is Rodman.
I can only imagine MJ when Rodman came, and he's at the height of all this great success, and they're winning games, and then all of a sudden they're like, "All right, here's the guy with the crazy hair. He has like 80 piercings. And yeah, on game night, he might take off and he might fly to Las Vegas and blow $50,000 and then come back just in time for the game. He might not show up to practice. He might not do any of that stuff. But yeah, he's going to get you a bunch of rebounds. I can only imagine how that went for the Bulls. And I know there was a lot of contention there between a lot of those players. So I don't think I've ever been this excited for a documentary. Ethan, what do you think?
I completely agree. I mean, with the Dennis Rodman take, there's so much to him, especially afterwards. Like, as you guys have said before, like, we weren't alive to see that kind of stuff, but we see how he is now. And you can only think like how much of that was the same, like him in North Korea, like one of the very few American citizens to actually be allowed like in there, like in terms of just like politics, like that's just something insane. It's just the whole Rodman thing is just, he's such a character. I'd love to see what they capture from him, and I assume it's a lot.
What I want to see is, we've seen Rodman before. We've seen his 30 for 30. He just had that released less than a year ago. We sort of know what MJ's about just because of all the popularity. I want to see some of the role players. We know what MJ, we know what Rodman, we know what Pippen are about. We know Steve Kerr as a coach. I want to see Steve Kerr as a player. We know some of these Bulls people after they played with Chicago. I want to see what it's like to be overshadowed by Michael Jordan and just sort of be along for the ride, witnessing greatness. That's what I'm most intrigued to see, is how Steve Kerr articulates, or Charles Oakley or someone like that articulates their experiences, where they're a great basketball player, no doubt, but they are not Michael Jordan.
And I'm really hoping that they touch on the Michael Jordan, the Steve Kerr punch. I think getting both of those guys talking about it would be super interesting. And that's something that we've never really gotten to know the full story of. So I really hope they address that.
That might be the main storyline that I'm looking forward to, because outside of the retelling of the Pistons series where Michael was just absolutely beat down, or maybe baseball, I think the Steve Kerr punch is the best basketball story outside of the Pistons series, the Jordan Rules Pistons series, that they could tell. So that I'm with you right there on that one, Scotty. I think that I
think they're telling the best story they can tell with that whole last season, because we've seen just from the trailers how chaotic and crazy that looked. So I think they're telling the best story they can tell, but that is definitely like an individual thing that is one of the most intriguing parts of that whole saga for sure.